Hi, it's 1010 the Navigator, and today we are on chapter 20 or question 20 of the 2022 Anunnaki Code, the end of the world and their return to Earth. The chapter is titled, Do Anunnaki Believe in God? The answer, Anunnaki's God is not the same God we worship on Earth. The grand leader of the Anunnaki, called the creator of energy, and other Anunnaki kings and commanders of the first three expeditions to Earth were worshipped by the early human races as gods. The Anunnaki do not believe in a God in the same way we do, even though they were the ones who created and originated the early forms of all our religions on Earth. However, those Anunnaki who brought religion to the Earth were of a lower class of Anunnaki. The God Yahweh they brought to Earth and planted in the mind of the primitive humans was a vengeful and terrifying God, a fact the Gnostics and early scholars of the Coptic Church in Egypt were fully aware of. Their doctrines show their disdain for such a God, and consequently they called him the creator of evil and darkness. Later on in history, the Gnostics began to spread the word that this earth was not created by the God of the church, but rather by an evil demigod. The more advanced human beings who interacted with the Anunnaki shared similar beliefs. Today, if humans would learn about all of this, the religious aspects of our beliefs would be most difficult to reconcile. Members of the Anunnaki expedition to Phoenicia taught the Phoenicians how to develop their own language and revealed to them the secret powerful names and attributes of Bala Shamrut. They instructed them not to use these words for ill purposes, particularly the word Balazam ar-il is never to be pronounced or written. Later on in history, the Hebrew religiously observed this instruction, and thus pronouncing the name of God became forbidden in Jewish tradition. However, the Anunnaki did reveal to the Phoenicians and Sumerians even positive and powerful names, attributes of the grand leader, call him God in terrestrial terms. If well used, these words can bring prosperity, good health, and salvation in moments of difficulty and despair. The Prophet Muhammad learned these 7 words from an early Christian ascetic, a Sahara hermit called Raheb Bauyara. Today, Muslims all over the world are aware of these 7 words or names. They call them in written Arabic, Asma Allah al-Sabha al-Husana, meaning the 7 lovely names of God. These names do not have numerical value or secret meanings, as many scholars claim, simply because they were not originally written in a geometrical form and did not correspond to a true God. Note, none of these words appeared on the alleged hieroglyphic measuring tape that the Americans found at the UFO crash in Roswell. The symbols and geometrical signs Americans found in Roswell were biochemical symbols. Also, early names of the Hebrew God were of an extraterrestrial origin. It is true that the ancient Sumerian texts and records mention names of some of the Anunnaki leaders, such as Utu, Ningzinda, Ninki, Marduk, Enki, Enlil, Inanna, but the greatest name of all was Baal Shemrut. Baal Shemrut, also referred to as Baal Shemrut Ankh. He was not depicted by the Anunnaki as a god. Terah, the father of Abraham, mistakenly worshipped Baal Shemrut Ankh as God. Early Semites made the same mistake when they worshipped the leaders of the Anunnaki as gods, later to be called Bin Elohim, meaning the children of the gods. The Anunnaki never introduced themselves as gods. The Jewish words El Elyon and Yahweh, Jehovah, were taken directly from the Anunnaki's written language. The original word was Yahweh El Anki, and El Elyon was Il Ayalon Emrut. Some scholars equated the Anunnaki with the Nephilim. This is not totally correct. The lower class of the Anunnaki are the Nephilim, although many historians sometimes call them Ana Kelim or Elohim. Elohim was interpreted by the early human race, including the Hebrew, as God or my Lord. Elohim is the plural of Eli, and Eli became God in many Semitic languages, including Hebrew and Aramaic. It is the same meaning in Aramaic, Hebrew, Phoenician, Akkadian, and Arabic, and it was frequently used to reference to God. Even Jesus Christ used it. On the cross, Jesus said in Aramaic, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, meaning, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? The higher class of the Anunnaki, Ra-Fa, is ruled by Baal Shamrut, and his followers or subjects are called the Shatarut Haksal Aim, meaning the inhabitants of the house of knowledge. Mistakenly, the Aramaic and Hebrew texts refer to as house of God, or those who see clearly. At one point in ancient times, the Anunnaki told the Phoenicians that there is no God, one God ruling over the entire universe. However, the high priest of Melkart, chief god in Tyre, Carthage, and many regions in the Near and Middle East, instructed the temple's priests to mislead the people and spread the word that the Anunnaki were celestial gods visiting Earth and were constantly working with the Phoenician gods. In the early tales about Cadmos, the Phoenician prince who lived around 2000 BC, according to Herodotus of Halicarnassus, the concept of one god instead of many gods began to surface. It was based upon the belief that the Anunnaki followed the one supreme ruler who created the entire human race. But even then, the term God did not mean the God we worship today. Cadmos was the first Phoenician scholar and thinker who knew that God did not create mankind, and that the universe was not created by the supreme God or gods of the Phoenicians, the neighboring Near Eastern civilizations, or the Anunnaki. Cadmos was and still is one of the brightest minds in the history of humanity. He is recognized by the ancient Greeks, Hellenes, as the creator of the alphabet. Cadmos founded the legendary city of Thebes and built the first acropolis in ancient Greece. The Greeks called him Cadmos, and to honor him, they called the city of Thebes Cadmea, from Cadmos, after him. Many words and letters from the Phoenician alphabet derive from the Anunnaki language. Cadmos wrote down its final format according to the instructions of the Anunnaki, so he knew what he was talking about. He knew from the Anunnaki that there is no such thing as a one God, Judeo-Christian God, who created Adam, Eve, and all of us, because he was one of their students. And this concludes chapter 20.